Good evening, this is Matthew again. Another book that I recommend, kind of for the church culture, is Why Men Hate Going to Church. This is by David Murrow. David Murrow was an award-winning television producer and writer based in Alaska. He is the director of Church for Men, an organization that helps congregations reconnect with the world's largest unreached people group. The first edition of Why Men Hate Going to Church was an instant Christian bestseller. So one of the reasons I picked this book is, again, it's a simple read. He doesn't use big words, that go over people's heads. But he goes into the history of why men started kind of depleting going to church. Some of the titles that he made, he has 3 parts in this book. Part 1 deals with where are the men. Part 2 deals with church culture versus man culture. And then part 3 goes into calling the church back to men. So I really gravitated towards this book just because of, he just keeps it simple. Why men stopped going to church. And one of the reasons that he was finding was about kind of like phraseology that churches have started saying or have been saying for many years, and it's just been caked on into the church culture. So, for example, he goes into a little bit of that in chapter 12. He states, Christians tend to use feminine vocabulary when describing their faith. References to sharing, communication, relationships, support, nurturing, feelings, and community are all sprinkled throughout the conversation of Christians, both men and women. And then he goes into, on the next page, kind of describing different churches. Liberal churches have removed masculine pronouns from hymns, liturgy, or even scriptures in an effort to make women feel more comfortable in church. Some Bible translations are expunging masculine references. Sons of God is now children of God, but restraining feminine ones, bride of Christ. Some politically correct pastors refuse to use male pronouns at all, even when referring to God. Some have even neutered the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, no longer authorize baptism. That power now rests with its androgynous creator, redeemer, and sanctifier. And then another form of a feminine word that he mentions is sharing. Christians often say things like, Steve, would you please share with us what the Lord has placed on your heart? Regular men don't talk like this way, he states. It sounds too much like kindergarten. Imagine a gang member saying to one of his brothers, Blade, would you please share with us how you jacked that Mercedes? So he goes into like the language within the church that we've kind of just been going through the motions of. It's like, oh, this is what this term means. Oh, this is what that term means. No, forget it. And more he goes into like it's more, the church is more geared to the female side, not really the men's side. So I didn't, reading this, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I've seen this over the years. I've been to church my entire life, and I can say that a lot of those words and a lot of those things that I've seen throughout my lifetime while going to church. So this was definitely an eye-opener. Another example that he gives in chapter 16 about men at the church. Men are not just a byproduct of church growth. They are the reason behind it. And then he continues, men are a miracle go for a church. Put men in church and it will grow. The men don't even have to be that committed. We saw this a few generations ago. Mainline churches in post-war America scooped up religiously adrift men and grew like mad as a result. But during the 1970s, the mainline turned its back on men and all things masculine. Almost immediately, mainline churches began deflating like leaky balloons, losing members and influence. Now the megachurches and church plants have taken a page from the 1950s mainline. They become the new landing pad for disconnected men. As a result, they're growing like crazy. 50 years ago, mainline pastors were the most influential voices from religion in America. Today, mega church pastors are. The good news is any church can attain and retain men. You don't need a $12 million campus, a 30 by 40 video screen, or a pastor with a goatee. Any church, regardless of its size, staffing, and budget, can do it. But it's not enough to copy one or two things they're doing at the megachurch. You have to create a culture that welcomes men. Again, there's no need to alter the gospel of Jesus, doctrines, or core beliefs. So then he goes into examples of things that he's seen over the years. What I got out of this book when I read it was understanding simplicity and practical aspects in church more. It is a must-read just because of that. Just keeping it simple and keeping things practical. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Pretty much this book kind of explains that. So if you want, pick this up. I think it's a great book.